Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of a different video. It's a fragrance reviewers tagged. I've been tagged by the Fragrance Brothers, and apparently what's going on is a little concept where there are basically a bunch of questions that are asked and reviewers answer them. It's sort of like a get to know you video, and some of these questions, to be perfectly honest, I've already answered, but to kind of go with the spirit of things, I'm going to go through and answer all of the questions that are presented within this tag video. And then of course tag another fragrance reviewer in response to this video, right? So with that, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the questions. All right, so the first question is, what are your earliest fragrance memories? Now, my earliest fragrance memories are, some of them I don't actually completely remember. It was what I was told by my family, and that's that I did not open my eyes for a good portion when I was first born, and instead kind of sniff my way around and kind of sniff my way around to the nipple, if you will. I sniffed my way around when trying to figure out and find who was present, and that was my, I guess you could say, earliest fragrance instance. My earliest fragrance memory, it probably has to stem from my father. I know what my father smells like, and he used to actually wear Old Spice. And so I remember, you know, before going to work, he would put on Old Spice after he came out of the shower, you know, kind of get dressed and kind of go off, and I would always have his scent and know what his scents kind of smelled like, and it really did, I guess you could say, stick out to me. And so that would easily be my very first fragrance memory. What was my my first fragrance purchase? This one is actually a little bit of a tough one. I actually don't think I can remember accurately what my first fragrance purchase was. It had to have been in high school, but even then I'm not sure if I actually bought mine or if somebody else bought them for, actually, well, I know a bunch of people bought me fragrances before, like, you know, for Christmas gifts and, you know, various gifts like that, and I just kind of take them and squirrel them away. My first fragrance purchase was, so it's either one of a couple. It's either Polo Blue. No, Polo Blue I got for a gift. I think it might have been Polo, was it Double Black? Huh. Yeah, I'm going to go with Polo Double Black. I think that was probably the first fragrance that I purchased and no one else purchased. Yeah, Polo Double Black. What was my first niche purchase? My first niche purchase actually is very distinctive because it was Muscat Jour by Frédéric Malle. The reason why I went out and purchased it was because I saw a review by another fragrance reviewer named Hero, and if you don't know and haven't seen his videos I don't believe are up anymore just because he took them down, but he was a very, I guess you could say, a very charismatic person, and the way that he described the fragrance and the way that he was able to describe it was to kind of give you the impression that, man, if you got this fragrance, you know, you were going to be the shit, basically, with this fragrance. It was, you know, just masterfully smelling, and thank God it turns out that I actually like the smell of Muscat Jour. If I think my first experience would have been, oh, absolutely, let me go ahead and buy this fragrance, and it turns out utter crap, and I just spent $200 on a fragrance, then I would have been a little bit disappointed. But it turned out that I like the fragrance. So Muscat Jour was my first niche purchase. What was my first blind buy? It's kind of tough because I had a lot of blind buys, to be perfectly honest. I really wasn't into going out sniffing fragrances and then purchasing them. I was just pretty much going off of hearsay and conjecture. I'm going to have to go with my first... No. Yeah, my first blind buy was probably Le Male. Le Male was my first blind buy, and I remember sniffing it, and originally being kind of upset, wondering what was the whole fuss. And it was one of those fragrances that actually grew on me to the point where it's a fragrance that I'm unwilling to let go at this point. Le Male, yes, was my first blind buy. What was my best blind buy? My best blind buy was Muscat Avajor. No, you know what? No, not Muscat Avajor. Yeah, you know what? It was Muscat Avajor. Muscat Avajor was my best blind buy. There's a couple that I was thinking of that could have been my best blind buys, but they weren't technically blind buys. One was Spiritueux de Louvigny. I remember wanting to blind buy that like crazy, and I just kind of put it off. And then one time we were out, purchasing fragrances, I think at Barney's with Louis, City Messiah, Frankenator, Igor, and a couple others. And I remember Louis bought Spiritueux de Louvigny, and when I first smelled it, I was like, wow, this is magical. I've got to have it. So I technically smelled that before I bought it, which is why it wasn't a blind buy and why I was thinking. But Muscat Avajor was, yes, my best blind buy. Is there any other one that No, you know what? There's actually been a lot of good blind buys that I've bought, and I've gotten extremely lucky when it comes to blind buys. A couple have not worked out, and I'll get to that in a bit. But for the most part, if I blind bought something and it was expensive, especially, I made out like a bandit. It's really the cheapies that I failed at blind buys. My worst blind buy, I would say Diesel's Fuel for Life. Diesel's Fuel for Life, I actually, I counted it as a blind buy because I bought it in the store. I thought I liked the scent, took it home, and it just got worse and worse and worse to the point where, oh man, I can't stand Fuel for Life now. It just smells like hurting. It just, ugh. I just can't, yeah. I can't deal with it. Yeah, Fuel for Life. What are my favorite fragrance notes? Actually, I've got a couple of these, but there's the one that I'm most known for, if you ask people who know me, bergamot. I love the smell of bergamot. Bergamot done correctly. It's the reason why Bergamot 22 from Le Labo is still, arguably one of my very, very absolute favorite scents. I absolutely love that scent. But in general, when bergamot's done well, it's a citrus that I really enjoy. Vanilla is a good one. I know that's kind of plain and everything like that, but when vanilla is used properly, I like vanilla a lot too. I like cedar of the wood from the wood line. Cedar is the scent that I like. Plum. I like plum. It's not present in a lot of fragrances, but I actually figured out that I really do like the smell of plum when it's put in fragrances. So plum, bergamot, cedar, oh, well, vanilla, like I was saying, but there's one more note that I would say that I really enjoy, and that's ambergris. I know it smells weird by itself, but and this is why I was kind of on the fence of putting it in, because when it's mixed in with other things, that's where ambergris really shines, and that's why I like the smell of ambergris. So it's not by itself, but mixed in with others, I like the essence of ambergris. What is my favorite fragrance house? Whew. All right, favorite fragrance house. There's a lot of good houses, but when I think about my favorite fragrance house, I think you can also translate this to, let me look at the questions real quick. Just want to make sure that this question doesn't come up again. Yeah, doesn't come up again. So if I think about my favorite fragrance house, and it kind of translates out to me at least as the question of, if you had to only stick with one house, what house would you go with? And for me, all right, so Chanel's got a good house. Tom Ford has a good house. Creed has a good house. Dior has a good house. Alright, so let me narrow it down to those four right now really stick out to me. Yeah, if you had asked me this question maybe a year ago, I probably would have answered Tom Ford. And Tom Ford to me is still, one of the better fragrance houses. I like their scents. I think they're, I still love their scents. But gun to my head, and I know people probably going to chide me for this one, Creed. I'd probably have to go with Creed. The House of Creed, to me, really makes... they're my favorite house. I really believe they do make the best scents. Now, yes, it's expensive water, basically. Toilet water, if you will. But Creed, their scents are understated. They are elegant. Sorry about the siren, but they're elegant. People love the scent generally. You're really never going to really offend people with it. A wide, versatile range of fragrances. And at this point, I've told many people that the last two fragrances that I buy were probably going to be a flacon of Spice and Wood and a flacon of Jardin Amalfi. So Creed is my favorite house. What fragrance best describes me? I actually, two scents came to my mind when I thought of what scent best describes me, and I just narrowed it down to one. I would say M7 by Yves Saint Laurent. M7, it's I guess I should probably start off by describing, I guess, how I perceive myself. I perceive myself as I guess you'd say, most of the time, a quiet individual. I like to observe things, but once I'm, comfortable or in my element, that's when I get a little bit louder. I get a little bit more aggressive with whoever I am with, and by aggressive, obviously, I don't mean, you know what I mean. I get a little more loose. I get a little more comfortable. But if I don't, if I'm not if I'm not acquainted with people, I tend to be a little bit guarded and more careful with what I say, as to A, not offend people, B, kind of scope out, see how their personality is, how their how their mannerisms are, just to see how I can best interact with them. And I get that feeling from M7 as being a mysterious scent, but once you kind of get to know it is when it opens up and it becomes an even more alluring or inviting type of a scent. And so I kind of equate that. So M7, I would say, by Yves Saint Laurent is the one that best fits me. What is my favorite fragrance? Again, a year ago, this question would have been different, or this answer would have been different. It would have been Muscat Vajor without a doubt. Right now, I would say it's a two-way tie between, and I say it's a tie because one is my favorite in the winter and one is my favorite in the summer. My favorite in the summer right now, or when it's hot, Bergamot 22. When it's cold, Tom Ford's Tuscan Leather. Those are my two favorite scents. And yeah, I'm going to stick with that. What is my fragrance profile? In other words, what type of fragrances do I typically like? At this point, I used to like loud fragrances. I used to be the one to like to go out and get fragrances that'll project and everything like that. Now I'm the exact opposite. I like understated scents. I like scents that are gonna smell great, but at the same time last long, but be understated. In other words, I don't want it to project a lot. I don't want it to go out, scream, grab other people. I want it to be my own self-contained bubble, if you will, so that the only time you smell me is if I'm really close to you, or something like that. So an example of fragrances that I like now, and which explains why I actually don't like Muscat, or it's not my favorite fragrance anymore, Muscat Vajor, but scents like, that's why I like Creed scents. I like Millésime Impérial for that reason. I like Mason Francis Kirkjohn's, or not Aqua Universalis Forte, but Pour le Matin. Let's see, what else? I like a lot of the Dior fragrances that are like that. Dior Homme Sport, Dior Homme Cologne, I like those. I like Still Life. I like Humaniste or Humaniste from Frappin. That's one of, that's fantastic. Gin and tonic almost type of a smell. Nice sharp citrus. And so those are, yeah, those are the type of scents that I like now. What are my fragrance resolutions going forward? I've already actually started to implement this. I really wanted to change the structure. I actually don't want to own so many fragrances now. I've come to the realization, I've always known this, but it never really bothered me before. But now it just felt like it was unnecessary, and that's owning so many fragrances. I owned well over 300, and I really want to cut that down to only the ones that I absolutely want. Don't have a set number, but I do know that just enough to be in, take up the top two places in my fragrance cooler, if you will. Maybe even the three, or even fill the fragrance cooler. But going forward, I'm only going to have the scents that I absolutely like, and I've got an idea of what it's going to be. And so, I've begun selling it off. So the first fragrance resolution is cutting down my collection just to the ones that I absolutely do truly wear and like. Yeah, that's definitely one. And I've actually been enlisting the help of my girlfriend on that one too, just because I won't keep anything that she finds that smells bad, basically. Even if I like it, I'll get rid of it, basically, because it's not that important to me. So I'll get rid of it. So yeah, it's a process. It's taken a while, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm also going to limit how much I buy and what I buy. When I buy fragrances, it's going to be primarily to review them and then sell them immediately after, so they don't lose that much value. And then I want to get those 2 creeds, basically, that I was talking about. 2 creeds being one Spice and Wood and Jardin Malfi. And I'll probably be really selective about what I buy and purchase to keep going forward. Yeah, those are my fragrance resolutions. All right, who am I tagging? Well, continuing on with the spirit of tradition of tagging 2 people instead of just one. One, not 2, not one. Yeah, I'm tagging 2 people, all right? The 2 people that I'm tagging are Ray Bonds. He's been around for a while in the community. I'm really curious to see what his thoughts are and what his information is. So Ray Bonds is the first person. The second person is another person that has done quite a few videos, and that is Creed Frags. So Ray Bonds and Creed Frags, I think it's Creed Frags 30, 34, I'm going with 30. Creed Frags, basically. So Creed Frags and Ray Bonds. Both of the links to the channels will be down below. Let them know. Let's keep this train going. Take care, guys.